Yes. Welcome everyone to Laugh Lab Storymasters. I am the president of our club, and it is an advanced club that is dedicated to laughter through storytelling. So we periodically have actually we only meet once a month, so that's periodically. We have a workshop for people to come and practice learning new ways to make people laugh, or to tell stories, to work on their tall tales is what we're going to do today. So welcome everyone. I'm so glad you're here. And I'm going to turn this meeting over to our Toastmaster for the evening, our wonderful and vibrant and popular, well-known Rebecca P. Murray, edutainer.
Thank you so much to our distinguished president for that lovely, lovely introduction of me. And if you want to know more about me, you'll have to wait until after the meeting, which I'm sure you don't, because we want to learn more about you, which is exactly what we'll be doing tonight in this meeting, because many of you will have an opportunity to share newfound skills and share us through a story about yourself. And we're not going to call it a lie. We'll just call it extending the truth through a tall tale. First, let's take you through what we'll be doing in the next 2 hours together. First, we'll hear from our distinguished presenter, who I will momentarily introduce to you. Then we will have a Q&A session for about 10 minutes. Anything on your mind that you've learned that you have more questions about, we'll be taking a short break. We'll come back together. Then that's when you have the opportunity to share a tall tale for 2 to 3 minutes. So we're using evaluation timing style. We'll go over the timing in a second. And after each presenter, after each tall tale, Darren, our distinguished guest presenter, will give you a little feedback on your tall tales. You can take your tall tale to the next tall level. Finally, we will have an evaluation of the entire meeting by our distinguished general evaluator, and I will introduce him later on in the meeting. First, let's hear from our timer, Phil Person. And Phil, you're probably wondering what the timing is, aren't you?
Indeed. I was going to make stuff up and it'll be a tall tale.
Yes, that's right. And I will say too, before we go over the timing, that if you are not about to speak, please mute yourself until you're invited to speak, so that we can keep control of the meeting that way.
Rebecca, I muted everybody, but including you. Can you unmute? Sorry.
Ta-da! Yes, I'm unmuted now. Our guest presenter will be speaking for 45 minutes. Darren, when would you like to see those lights?
Lights. What lights are you talking? Oh, sorry. Right. Timing lights. Sure.
Timing.
Oh, hey, 45 minutes, you say? Wow. Okay. Let's go with 35, 40, and 45. That way,
okay,
Phil doesn't have to work too hard.
That sounds great. In the middle
I'm such a good guy.
In the middle of the workshop, Kyle Hall will be presenting a tall tale. Timing for tall tales, Toastmasters style, is typically 3 to 5 minutes. Phil, can you please explain to Kyle what he'll be seeing in 3 to 5 minutes?
I would be glad to. At 3 minutes, I will give you the green background. At 4 minutes, I'll give you the yellow background. And at 5 minutes, I will give you the red background.
Is that clear, Kyle? I just want to make sure that you understand the green, yellow, and red light deal. Just shake your head. Yeah? Okay, good. We got it. Great. We will be in our Q&A session. It'll be 10 minutes. Phil, could you just maybe show a red light at 9 minutes? We may not even go the full 10 minutes, so we'll see how many questions and answers we have in that time period. We'll have a 5-minute break, and then when we come back, those of you who are daring enough to try the tall tale, you will have 2 to 3 minutes. Phil, would you please share what the timing lights will look like in 2 to 3 minutes?
I'd be glad to. For the 2 to 3 minutes, I will give you a green at 2 minutes, a yellow at 2.5 minutes, and a red at 3 minutes.
Fantastic. And then we'll have evaluation after each one for up to a minute. We'll give Darren up to a minute. So maybe just show the red light at 60 seconds and we should be good. Our general evaluator, Leah Matangelo, who I see is here, will have a number of minutes. We don't time the general evaluator. He could go on for an hour, but I'm sure he won't, right, Lee? Okay, fingers crossed. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our featured speaker for today. Darren Frew has been an active Toastmaster since 2007. In fact, he was named Toastmaster of the Year in British Columbia in 2010 and 11. Boy, that's a fast tracker, I can tell you that right now. When BC split into 2 districts in 2014, the new District 96 decided to run a tall tales speech contest. This was a new and strange contest to most Toastmasters, so Darren presented a series of tall tale workshops as his high performance leadership project, or HPL, if you're familiar with that. This helped Darren become a distinguished Toastmaster. He is very active in speech contests. Darren was the 2015 Table Topics champion and the 2016 Evaluation champion in District 96. Darren uses these skills that he gains from Toastmasters to share his experience as a recent cancer patient with the BC Cancer Agency and the Patient Voices Network in an ongoing effort to improve overall care and treatment. That's wonderful. Darren is also a volunteer instructor at the 808 Air Cadet Squadron in Coquitlam.
Good work. You got it right first time.
Oh, excellent. BC. It's the phonics school I did, right? Helping cadets prepare for the annual effective speaking competition. When he's not talking, which is probably rare, Darren enjoys gardening, cooking, and traveling throughout the beautiful British Columbia. Please help me give a warm virtual welcome to distinguished Toastmaster Darren Frew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My friends, you are 7 years old. You have just happened upon a brand new toy. Dad's golf clubs. You go into the garage to practice your non-existent golf swing. And by golly, you're not too bad. You connect with quite a few. Unfortunately, the effect is the same as putting a marble in a blender. The carnage is dreadful. And at one point, one of the golf balls goes flying through the window, and that gets the attention of Dad, who comes into the garage. And once he surveys the scene in front of him, he has that serial killer look in his eyes. What story are you going to make up to justify yourself? This is where we're going this evening, boys and girls. We want to get into the inner 7-year-old who's trying to get out of trouble. This is the essence of tall tales. So what in the world is a tall tale? Oh, hey, I'm going to throw it, because this is going to be fairly interactive, because nobody wants to hear me drone on for 45 minutes. Trust me. What in the world is a tall tale? Does anybody in the studio audience here or in television land have an idea what a tall tale is?
Would you like people to unmute, use the chat? How would you like them to answer?
Yeah, they can put up their hand. They can start screaming whatever they wish. So
Okay, you can use raise the hand feature and unmute.
I see Lori. Lori, go for it.
Hi, Darren.
Hello.
My understanding, I think, is that it's that in a way it's a true tale, but there are certain elements that are perhaps, quote, enhanced that aren't quite true. Because the idea is that you want people to think it is true. And so it can't be too farcical, right? Like, you know, imaginary dragons flying into your living room and stuff. I can't go that far because you want people to think that it could be true. So mostly true, some not true.
You're good, and she's not on my payroll. I see another hand here. Earl.
Yes,
Get
a
it.
tall tale is told so well that you can't tell where it veered off into becoming a tall tale. It just is done so interestingly, which that's why I'm here, because I just heard one this past Saturday and I thought it was true.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I admire your gullibility. Anybody else? I mean, both of these people are right on the money here. No, I'm going to go. Lindsay, go for it.
What is the difference between a tall tale, as we're expressing it, and things like Alfred Bulrod Storm Along, or Paul Bunyan, or where we have meta-heroes that have shaped the country?
The similarity is there. They are basically the same. So any story that you hear that has, and my previous speakers here talked about the fact that ideally there should be some grain of truth in there as a starting point, but then that truth can be embellished for whatever reason. And it may be there to make a point, to inspire a group of people, whatever it happens to be. But I'm gonna go to the tale here. So in the speech contest rulebook for this year, Tall Tales contest rules. Number 1, the subject for a tall tale speech must be of a highly exaggerated, improbable nature and have a theme or plot. That gives us an awful lot to work with, doesn't it? And especially since this amazing club that is hosting this extravaganza this evening is a humor-based club. We have another club in the golf bag, so to speak, continuing from my story from earlier. So yeah, Charles, you're right on. There are a lot of things that we have heard, could be fairy tales, could be folk tales, but as Mark Twain once said, never let the truth stand in the way of a good story. And that's what we're going to focus in on here this evening. So I want everybody to bring out their inner 7-year-old, come up with these stories that are trying to get you out of indescribably severe punishment and maybe a shortened lifespan. We need to bring this forward. So this is what we're going to be concentrating on over the next little while, and we're going to have some demonstrations of what a tall tale is. Hopefully this will be an impetus for you, get the juices flowing, get the imagination going. And we're also going to, since there are more than one of us here, we're going to have the opportunity to go through and do a bit of debrief, bit of a conversation amongst ourselves to see if we can dissect what works, what doesn't, any questions that people have. And by the end of this session, we will have figured out how you can put together one of these protracted lies, tall tales, and also how you can work on delivering it. Because this is a wonderful secret to share with you. Of all the types of speeches that you can share with your friends and colleagues, this is the most liberating. Never let the truth stand in the way of a good story. Well, tell you what, let's take the truth and get it drunk and then go off on a ride for a while. Now we're talking here. There are no limits other than common decency and probably a few local ordinances. So we're going to take the imagination and take it as far as we can possibly go. Now, what I will do, with your permission, since you outnumber me, is share an example of a tall tale speech and then we can go through and dissect. And there are other people in the Hollywood Squares here who I know are just dying to share a tall tale speech. Kyle, perhaps others. So with your permission, Madam Chair, I will share a speech. And Phil, my dear friend Phil, I love you so much. Do not time me on this one. No, 3 to 5 minutes. That's what the DTM means. Don't time me. However, let's go for it here. And the title of the speech is Seemed Like a Good Idea at the Time. You're not going to believe what your father has done this time. That was the voice of my mother in January of 1985, when I had phoned in from an oil well that I was working on up in the Northern Arctic. I had one call every couple of weeks, so I phoned home to see how things were going. Home being beautiful Calgary, Alberta, Canada. When Mom told me that, I didn't really want to know what Dad had done this time, frankly. I've known the man for a few years and I was a little scared. Well, what he had done was read the newspaper one morning. And on page 12 of the Calgary Herald newspaper, there was an ad. And the headline on the ad said, "Have a heart. Magnum needs a forever home." And below the headline was a photo of the cutest puppy you could possibly ever imagine. Floppy ears, kind of a insipid look on his face. Cutest thing ever. Without consulting my mother, Dad bought into that ad and went right down to the SPCA and brought Magnum home. Magnum was a cross between a golden lab and a German shepherd. Cute puppy. Mom was initially very displeased, not with the puppy, but with Dad. That's what happens with couples, I guess. And Magnum just turned into the most beautiful dog. My mom fell in love. And being a cross between a Labrador and a German Shepherd, he grew. He became a big boy pretty quickly. And at about the age of 9 months, he topped out at 105 pounds. My mom never ever made it near 105 pounds in her existence because she was 5 feet tall if she was standing up. 100 pounds soaking wet, perhaps. And once Magnum got to the stage of being that big, when Mom was taking him for a walk, it was a lot more like he was taking her for a drag. So one day they came home after one of the drags around the neighborhood, and Mom looked like she had been in a fight with who knows. Her hair was all over the place. She was dirty, bleeding in a couple of places. And she looked at Dad and said, "Okay, this is your dog. You do something about him." And then Dad said something horrifying. "I have an idea." I don't know about you, but anytime that Dad said, "I have an idea," the hair on the back of my neck stood up. What was Dad's idea? Well, his idea involved this newfangled thing called a mountain bike. These devices came out in the mid-'80s, and they were these nice sturdy bicycles, strong, rigid frame, big tires with nice knobby tread on them, horizontal handlebar, almost indestructible, you'd have to think. Dad's idea was fairly simple. Energetic dog. Bicycle. Take energetic dog, tie it to the handlebars of the bicycle, and off we go. I didn't think about this as long as I should have, but I agreed to go along with it. So when we get everything set up, dog, leash, bicycle, Dad says, "Okay, you first." "What do you mean, me first? It's your idea." And he says, "Well, you're lighter than I am. And if Magnum can't take you on the bicycle, he's not going to be able to take me. So why don't we try him out with you first to see if this even works?" Somehow, for whatever reason I still can't quite understand, I agreed. And just as we're getting set up, Mom came out the front door and she said, Charlie, my dad's name, Charlie, you're wanted on the phone. So I said, no, Dad's going. Go, no problem. We got this. So I hook the leash to, or tie the leash around the handlebars, hook it on the Magnum's harness, hop on the saddle, say, okay, Con, let's go, boy. So he takes off at a small trot. And in the neighborhood that we lived in Calgary was great because it had all these beautiful paved pathways throughout the neighborhood. And where we were was right on the edge of town, overlooking a beautiful gorge that went into the Bow River Valley. You could see the Rocky Mountains in the distance. It was just perfect. And with these paved pathways, it was great. Lots of people went walking, running, bicycling, walking the dogs. So this seemed like a fantastic idea. And as he starts trotting along, it's actually working. He's going at a pretty good speed and I'm hanging on. And, okay, this is not bad at all. Got the feet on the pedals, but don't really have to do anything because the dog's doing all the work. Isn't this great? I'm thinking, holy cow, Dad had an idea that actually worked. Wow, that's impressive stuff. I was beginning to have new faith in my father. And when we got to the end of the block and we could see the beautiful mountains in the distance and the gorge leading down to the Bow River Valley, Magnum spotted a deer. He was gone like a shot, like somebody fired him out of a cannon. He was going after this deer and he was barking like a maniac. The only problem is I was tied to him. So he's running at full speed and the deer hops into the bush and so does Magnum with me and the bicycle in tow. That bush was really, really thick. There were Saskatoon berries, there were pine trees. I was reminded of why the province of Alberta has the slogan Wild Rose Country on the license plates, unfortunately. I could see my life flashing in front of my eyes because this dog is going like a maniac through this bush and I'm hanging onto the bike and we're still upright. I have no idea how this is happening, but I think I'm not going to survive this. However this ends is not going to be pretty. So if we're going through the bush and I've got leaves in my teeth, in my eyes, it was just, I'm getting scratched all over the place. And at one point we finally come to a stop because Magnum's lost sight of the deer. Okay. And we're sort of on one of those paved paths, but I'm not in very good shape. I'm on the ground just trying to catch my breath and figure out what did I just survive. The bicycle that was so sturdily made, no, not really. And here's Magnum, and he's quite proud of himself. And at one point he looks at me and went, he wants a treat. A treat? You want a treat? You idiot! You just about got us killed. That was the opening line for a soliloquy I don't want to share with you. I used language that I didn't even know I knew. I was just letting him have it completely because he just about got us killed. And at one point, okay, yeah, I had been a little rough on him. I get that. Nobody likes being yelled at. So I was feeling pretty bad when I reached out to pet him behind the ears. I felt worse when I looked beyond Magnum to see the kindergarten class that was on the pathway. They had heard my entire rant. And so there were about 20 saucer-eyed five-year-olds looking at me like, oh, his mummy's gonna be really mad at him when he gets home. The two teachers who were there with him were just staring daggers into my eyes. They were projecting what I had just said to Magnum back at me. Great. This has just been a perfect day. Okay, so remarkably, we're not too far from home. Having gone through the bush, it wasn't a lot of distance. So we get back on the path. I've got the dog on the leash, taking the bike with me, such as it is, because the wheels are both bent. It's just about need to carry the bike home. As we're walking back to the house, at one point, Magnum steps on a stone, gets it right between the pads. And that hurts. That really, really hurts. Ow, ow, ow. So I took the stone out of his pad, and he was in a lot of pain. He was crying. So suddenly we got him limping, me limping, somehow being ambulatory, bike gone. Get back to the house. Mom comes up the front door, looks at the scene of the three of us who have been through whatever. She goes right to Magnum and says, "Oh, poor baby. Oh, what did Darren do to you? He's so bad." Madam Chair. Okay, let's get some feedback and opinions on that. First of all, how much of that was true? Anybody wish to venture a guess?
All of it.
100%.
You people are good. Oh, wow. Have I got some real estate deals for you? Some of it was true. The idea, so Magnum was true. Beautiful dog. Dad's idea of hooking him up to the bicycle was true. However, I'm not as stupid as I look. When Dad suggested that, I got out of there. So he and Magnum decided to try this. They got about 50 feet. Because the first time that the dog pulled the bicycle, the bike went into his backside, and the dog got scared and turned off 90 degrees, which pulled Dad off the bike. So Dad, Magnum, the bike were all injured within about 50 feet of trying this experiment. And then they just thought, no, we're not going to do this again. So, but I'm glad that some people thought that I was telling the truth. This has implications. Wow. Okay. Anyway.
One of the things that helped sell
class.
it as the truth was the wonderful quality of the word pictures you were painting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You bring up a very, very good point with any of these. And again, as a general statement, with Tall Tales, we have the chance to let everything blossom. Our vocal variety, our body movement, the word pictures, we can take this all to a new extreme. And that's good because that's what it's supposed to be. So a good observation, Carl. Thank you very much. Earl and then Lori.
Yes, I knew it wasn't all true from previous experience, but what made it really sing was your detail was so good. It reminds me of To Tell the Truth, one of them's lying, and which one is it? Yeah.
Yeah, the more detail you can provide, I can't speak English, the more detail you can provide, the greater it enhances your credibility. People might actually think that you know what you're talking about if you throw in some detail. Lori, you had something to offer.
Yeah, I thought most of it was true. I figured the main thread of the plot was true, but that some of the additional details, like all the 5-year-olds with the big eyes and a few other little details, I thought maybe were added in to kind of amp it up a bit. But I think what I found so convincing of it as mostly all true was your expressiveness, and not just like vocally, but your facial expressiveness. You look like you were reliving what actually happened because your face was expressing joy and frustration and disbelief and all sorts of different feelings really effectively. It was very impressive.
Well, this combines two areas of truth, because I mentioned the fact that Dad had tried this business with Magnum and the bicycle, but also one time when I was taking Magnum for a walk, he actually did see a deer, and I had to somehow rein in this giant dog who wanted to go after this Bambi. And that was tough. We didn't get into the bushes, but I've never had a tug of war quite like that in my life. That's for sure.
Yeah,
So,
and I think for me, that detail was one of the parts that I thought was true, because it just seems like it would be true. And I think the detail with the kids was one detail too many. And I thought, oh, is that true? I don't know. That could be, but I don't know.
That was complete fabrication, although there was a kindergarten nearby. And he had her hand up. So
it's just the idea of everything happening in the same moment, the same time, that makes it less likely to seem true. But the dog being distracted by the deer and running off, that is so realistic. I could totally picture that happening. So I'm already pre-set up to believe you, because that little part of the plot is something I could absolutely see as happening in real life. So I think that's something to think about with the tall tale, is that the details added in, if they come from other parts of life that really have happened, but they just didn't actually happen in this particular scenario, that can make it appear more convincing, more realistic. I think that was a really good example of that.
You raise a good point. If you sprinkle in some things that either have happened or are quite plausible, then it really reduces the implausible part of it. So the brain starts thinking, okay, could this? Is this? Where? Huh?
That could have happened.
It could have happened. Amy, you had something that you wished to say, did you? Or?
Actually, I got thrown off a little bit because I thought you were calling from the north, and how did you end up in the story? So I got thrown off a little bit there.
Should have told you that I actually came back home. Yeah,
yeah, that would have helped.
That would have helped a little. So. You see, again, you bring up a very good point. The details are important. So, and then Rebecca's just saying she was lost on that as well. So yeah, this, you can get wrapped up in the fun of it all, which I just did, but leaving out one or two key pieces will confuse your audience. And I don't want to confuse my audience. I mean, that just happens naturally. Charles, you have something you wish to say, sir?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I enjoyed about it is, well, I had a friend named Tom Hyde, and he and I would get into things not unlike that. We were putting a roof on the house, and Tom was nailing the shingles over the peak of the roof, and he was sitting there nailing shingles on the top of the roof. The end of the roof was on a third floor, sort of on a tall rockery, and down below was Beach Drive.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Dom and I, yeah.
But you can see anything in this, for anybody who's trying to come up with a tall tale, if you start with something that has happened to you, and especially if it is strange, and those of us who are on the sunny side of 60, we have had a lot of strange things happen in the last 6 decades. No question. It's where do I start as far as coming up with a tall tale? I had more than a dozen things I could have shared this evening. And so any of us who've been around for more than a couple of decades, we've had some weird things happen. And let's embrace the weirdness. I'm fully in favor of that. Every now and then you something happens to you, just scratch your head and think, what in the world was that? And that is the genesis for one of these tall tales. Walter has his hand up. So Walter, sir, please contribute.
Oh, sure. Well, talking about some strange things that happened, I was really engrossed in the story, and as things were unfolding with the dog trotting along and doing really well, I could see something was about to happen, and I wasn't sure what, but I thought, sure enough, here comes a distraction. There's gonna be something that will turn the tail and just get things galloping, and I could almost hear the Lone Ranger tune striking up here.
Oh, I like that idea. That's good.
As the band was just keying up, and then there was a crash on my side of the screen. It didn't happen with you. It was over here. As I was finishing up my dinner, I was just, here's the remains of my plate here, and I thought, oh no, something crashed. Did I drop the china? Oh no, that wasn't it. What happened? This was so realistic. Did the dog finally make it over here? I was
absolutely. I sent him over to your place. So.
I didn't know what happened. And so being all muted and finishing my dinner, as I didn't want to expose myself in such a way, and you know, share with you all the deliciousness of my food here, I got up out of my office and I looked to see the mess of the exploded lampshade that came out of the ceiling. No idea what happened. True story.
Oh, cool. This is the genesis for a very, very good
And
tall
so
tale.
it was that while you were finishing your tale and beginning the evaluation, I was on the floor sweeping up the remains of the globe that had burst. Mysteriously, I have no idea what happened. I had just changed the light bulb. I was up there minutes ago before this call and changing the light bulb, got it all put together. And by golly, we're all set for this call. And all of a sudden, it wasn't. There was a dog, a ghost dog, I don't know what, galloping through the house. Whatever happened, I don't know. But you told a good story, sir.
We can blame Magnum's ghost on that. Sure, I'll take that. That's pretty good. So, you see where we're going with this. Odd things have happened in our lives, and let's use that as the basis for some of our stories. Because with a tall tale, I mean, one of the things we have to keep in mind, we're storytellers. And whether we're trying to educate a group of people or inspire them or entertain them, you know where I'm going with this, or whatever, the story is still the heart of it. So that's why you want to have a story that still has all the elements of a good story. Something that's going to keep you interested. Kyle, go for it.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I heard a guy who was talking about tall tales once, and he was saying that most tall tales take one aspect of a person or being or an animal and exaggerate just one aspect. You know, they don't exaggerate all aspects, in which case you get, you know, Superman. But you know, Babe the Blue Ox, besides the fact that he's blue, is also just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Something like that. Is that part of what you see as well?
Usually, I mean, with these, if you're going to exaggerate something, probably one aspect is more than your audience is enough for your audience. Because one problem, let's call it a problem, with sharing a tall tale, and any personal story, if it's happened to you, you know the details. You've got all of this. This happened to you, and you're embellishing it somehow. You're the only person who knows that. Your audience is trying to figure this out as you spit it out at them, like, what's he talking about here? So concentrating on one area that you can take, and we're trying to stretch the truth until it breaks. And ideally, and I'm delighted with my audience who couldn't really tell where the truth broke. That's good. If you went in a couple of different directions, that's going to be tough for the mind of your audience to get around, because they're one step removed from the experience. And that's an issue with sharing any personal story, whether it's a tall tale, a humorous tale, an international speech. Your audience is one step removed from your personal story. And that's something you always have to keep in mind, is what are they getting from this? And both Rebecca and Emmy pointed out really well. I knew that I had come back home to Calgary from being up north. I forgot to share that little fact with my audience. So that's something we have to be careful of. So yeah, and I mean, I'm a big fan of the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. So just exaggerating one aspect is perfect. But good point. Thank you very much. Other questions or comments before we let somebody else take a run at this? Does anything, oh yeah, Karen, you have your hand up. You also have your mute on.
There's that point in every story, you know, evident of an event where it all happens. And then you think, what could have happened? And I think going back to that point where you think about what could have happened, that's the beginning of your tall tale. And that's where you take off. Because
Yes.
I do word pictures on everything. And when I'm explaining something and explaining it factually, I can look back and think, oh my gosh, what if that cesspool hadn't been there, you know, or something like that. And then that's where you take off.
You are so correct. That is absolutely brilliant. It's a great observation. Absolutely. we look back on things that have happened to us and think, well, that was weird. How could that have happened differently? What could have been a different outcome to it?
Well, I'm always thinking, thank God that didn't happen that way, you know?
Absolutely. And here's where we get a chance to explore it. It's therapeutic. All these times we've been bottling up, like, oh, what if it happened this way? Well, let it happen this way. Play it out. Get it out of your system. You'll sleep better. So, good observation. Anything else? Does this all make sense? Why am I asking this question? I'm talking about tall tales. Does this make sense? I'm seeing sort of, nod, kind of ish, right? Very cool. Now, Phil, where in the world are we in terms of time? I'm chewing up all sorts of time here, aren't I?
We're at 32 minutes at the moment.
And I have 45. Okay, so this is an opportunity. I know we have at least one person in the weeds here, or in the irises, who has something that he wants to share with us. I'm going to ask our willing participant, Kyle. Kyle, are you ready to share your story and have it analyzed and evaluated by this august body here?
I think I am. This is the first time. I've been pondering this tall tale for a while, but I've never given it.
Therefore, this is your opportunity to let out your inner storyteller. Does it have a title?
Kismet.
Of course. Seeing whose photo we have back here. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, let me get this stage over to Mr. Kyle Hall with Kismet. Take it away.
Thank you, Darren. My wife and I, well, our whole family, we moved here to Squim to help take care of my aging father. And we moved across the street from him. And almost as soon as we moved there, our cat Kismet noticed the cat that's across the street. Now, the house across the street has a big wire mesh fence around it, tall wire mesh fence around it. And inside was this fluffy black cat. And Kismet sitting on our lawn and their fluffy black cat sitting on their in their fence. They hissed and they spit and jumped around and just declared their hatred for each other from a distance. Now, it had to be from a distance because we're on a busy road. It's a really busy road. There's cars going all the time. I remember one time I saw Kismet heading down the driveway, and you know, she was heading down the driveway like with a purpose. She was going to cross the street and go find a way into that yard and kick that black cat's butt. Well, there's traffic. I yelled, Kismet, stop! Look! And Kismet stopped. And she looked. And she saw the traffic. And she kind of flopped down in a frustrated way. Like, ah. And I was able to come up and scoop her up and, no, we're going to go back in the house. Kismet, well, I tried to keep her out of the front yard because that keeps her away from the road. It keeps her away from that aggravating, fluffy black cat. And so, okay, I put her out in the backyard. Now, she can get out of the backyard like any cat, but she's not that ambitious most of the time. And the next thing I noticed, the next time I noticed Kismet really paying attention to what I was saying or thinking about what I was saying is we have a shed in the backyard with a wood stack next to it. And she climbed up on the wood stack and she laid on top of the shed. It's a beautiful place to sun yourself. Lie on top of the shed in the sun, and she's lying there. And I'm sitting outside in a chair, and I look up and there's an eagle. Now, we live in Squim. There are bald eagles that live across the street. There's an eagle. And he's just kind of circling over the house. And I'm watching, and he starts diving. I'm like, Kismet, Kismet! Kismet lays there and watches and looking up at the eagle like, oh, look at that. And moments before the eagle comes down, she rolls. Once, twice, 3 times, drops off the edge of the shed as the eagle goes boom, over the top of the shed. Well, that cat has me at a wreck, but she clearly thinks she knows what she's doing. About a week later, I'm looking around for Kismet. Where is she? It's a beautiful sunny day. Where is she? I go out in the backyard, and she's on top of the shed, again, lying in the sun. But I noticed something different. You know how you have those leather strips of leather with handles that you carry wood in? You know, we would use it to carry the wood in the backyard and stack it up. Well, I left that at the bottom of the wood pile like you would. Well, that's up on top of the shed, and she's lying on it. She's just lying on it. And I'm watching. And sure enough, the eagle shows up. And he's circling around. And he's circling around. And she's lying there, nonchalant, belly up, enjoying the sun. And he starts diving. And I'm like, Kismet, look out. And Kismet, oh, so nonchalantly, leans over, puts a hook in the leather wood carrier, and she rolls once, twice, 3 times, making herself into a little cat burrito inside this heavy leather strap. And the eagle grabs it and picks it up. And Kismet gets up about 20 feet, and a paw comes out and grabs hold of the left side of that eagle and pulls, and the eagle veers over the house, over the street, at which point Kismet lets go of the leather strap, it in and rolls, and she drops into the neighbor's yard across the street. The eagle flies off with an empty leather strap, and Kismet and the fluffy black cat are in the bushes in the neighbor's yard. And you can hear the bushes are shaking, all kinds of screaming and fur flying. Well, I run across the street, dodging the traffic, open the gate to the neighbor's yard, and here comes Kismet walking out, proud as can be, looking very satisfied. She's a happy cat. And I pick her up and I carry her back across the street. And only then do we talk to the neighbors and find out that the fluffy black cat is male and the kittens are due in a couple of weeks. Drew.
Oh, God, I'm glad both my cats are neutered. Anyways. Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. First of all, let's give Carl a hand for that. That was just awesome. Oh, wow. No, I'm not going to say anything. I want everybody else to chime in here. Who has something to share with our dear friend Kyle, with the world's most clever, interesting cat? Lori first. Go for it, Lori. So, and then Emmy. So.
I just say I absolutely loved it. First of all, first things first, that is a gorgeous picture of your cat. Is that your cat on your screen?
That is Kismet. That's Kismet.
Gorgeous cat. She's a queen. She is a total queen. Gorgeous. Fantastic story, beautifully told. So expressive, but in a very natural way. Hilarious at different points throughout. And again, lots of very realistic bits that I could see were probably really happening based on how cats are in real life. It was so entertaining and engaging throughout. You didn't lose me for even a second. It was awesome. Yeah.
Thank you, Lori. Karen first and then Bill. So Karen, who's muted.
In the structure of the story, our believability was built because we had 3 incidents total where the cat rolled. So I couldn't tell where the lie began. It may have been a total lie, but here we were. We had the cat roll once, we had it roll twice, and then the 3rd and final time. So it's hard to figure out which one was the lie, but building that believability in in that way by repeating the actions as if the cat had these incredible attributes, I think is what made that story work. So that was a very good job.
Bingo.
Because it was sequenced perfectly and incidents matched. And I have no idea where the lie began.
Thank you, Karen. And this shows, again, the structure of a good story is really important with this. Bill has something he wishes to share. Bill, hit it. And then
yes, I know Kyle, and I know this is a completely true story. And you probably can tell too by the way he delivered it. So it was absolutely incredible. But the best part about his speech is look at his white hair, a gray beard, and black sweater. It matches perfectly with the, you know, the whole picture. It's just amazing.
I always dress to match my cat.
Exactly. So I thought that was great. Congratulations on winning the International Toastmasters Tall Tale Contest. I know you wanted to be a world champion at something, and you just did it. So thank you and congratulations.
thank you, Bill. And Bill's quite correct. You're not properly dressed unless you've got cat hair on your outfit. Lee, what do you have to share with us, sir?
Yeah, a wonderful story, Kyle. Just the great storytelling, the voice, the believability. I believe, I mean, everything was cool. The improbability was taking the adversary, the eagle, and turning it into a positive to get another task accomplished, which was to go, that was brilliant. So I love that. But everything was believable, except for that part of the ego coming down. But other than that, I mean, you got into the spirit of the cat, and anybody who's a cat owner knows that everything you said is highly plausible, and it was really cool. So I love the way you put it together.
Bingo. And that's another thing with connecting with your audience, because there is a chance that there are some animal people in your audience, whether they're cat owners, dog owners, whatever it happens to be. They're with you. Any of us who are cat owners have seen our cats do strange things. And so, yeah, okay, that seems almost kind of nearly, almost plausible. Any other comments before I get the hook around my neck? Charles, and Charles and then Walter. Okay, go for it, Charles. Especially when you're in mute, you'll be, there you go.
There we are.
Hit it.
The only thing I do, Kyle, is I would turn the cat into a yellow ring-tailed tom. I lived with a person who described herself as a cat lady, and we had 2 yellow ring-tailed toms, and I can believe anything of a yellow ring-tailed tom. They one of them came back all the time with grease, and we figured he was working on his car.
Probably.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, a cougar, most likely.
Yeah,
Walter.
right.
Walter.
Yeah, I want to congratulate you on your timing, Phil. It's one of the challenges that I have personally as I tell any kind of a story. I tend to be rather loquacious and going on and not paying attention to timing so much. So kudos to you for not only a well-told tale, but also with the timing and keeping it within bounds. And I know this story has a lot of good plausibility because I'm a neighbor right down the road in a little town of Quilcene. So hello, neighbor in Washington there, neighbor in next door county. We too have eagles, and boy, I tell you what, they definitely are a sight to see, especially when they're hunting. And so I was right there. I felt the wings of that eagle. It was just, oh, this is gonna be interesting here now. Let's see how this goes. But kudos on a well-told tale, Phil.
Thank you very much. Here we've got owls, which is even more interesting. Mr. Timer, Madam Chair, how in the world we're doing? I think I probably gone to the end of my rope here. Is this correct?
I think so. And I'd love to have not only the time of where we are in the main session, but also could we get Kyle's time, please?
Sure. We are right now at 41 minutes.
Okay.
Or 42 minutes, sorry. And Kyle's time was 6:03.
Okay. Okay, great. So we have 10 minutes for Q&A if we wanted to use it that way, but we are taking a break at 8:04, so we roughly have 10 minutes. Any way that you would like to use that, Darren?
I like the Q&A idea. If people have, especially if anybody has the germ of an idea for a tall tale that they want to share. ME, please, for example, let her go. Madam President.
Well, I have this idea, and I actually gave it once, but I'm not a tall tale person. I've never done it, and so it had some points that needed help. But what it was that my dad was a hammer thrower in the Olympics. He was the world champion hammer thrower, and you know how when you play with kids and you grab them by an arm and a leg and you whirl around and you play airplane. Well, what he would do is he taught me, he started by teaching me to roll up in a ball when he threw me in the water. So he'd throw me in the water and I'd curl up in a ball and hit the water. Then he built up to where he would do the airplane thing and he'd go around and around, and then he'd throw me into the water and I'd curl up in a ball. So this was like when I was like 5 or 6 years old. So in my story, what I wanted was for us to get into a situation where he was rescuing me from something by throwing me as far as he could into the water, and he threw me clear across the river. But I couldn't come up with a scenario that was believable that he would want to throw me away.
Oh, you're off to a good start here. You really are. I think Karen has something to add. Karen, add to Emmy's story here. Go for it. Let's hit it.
Oh, I'm not adding to Emmy's story. I can speak later. Let her go ahead and finish.
Okay, but I mean, this is a good basis for something like this. Like, okay, this is plausible, despite the fact he is my father and he's supposed to not kill me accidentally. No, you see, when your mind,
to roll up in a ball.
when your mind starts going in different places and you don't have no idea where this is coming from, just don't fight it. Just go with it, and because this is how a lot of our I was going to say a lot of our more legitimate stories, tall tales of legitimate stories, but when we're working on a speech, we're looking at what happened, what we want to share, where did it go, is this credible with my audience? Well, with tall tales, we have a bit more leeway. Madam Chair, you have something you wish to share?
Yeah, I was going to say, what if then as your confidence built of being throwing, your dad gets you this big trampoline. So you have this huge trampoline in the backyard and you're always doing these flips and stuff like that. Well, there's a house fire, you see, in the middle of the night. Your dad is able to get up to your room and he opens the window and he throws you out and you bounce on the trampoline, and that's how you're saved. He saves your life.
Well, that's a good one.
I mean, anything is possible, and some things that happen in real life seem so bizarre. For example, very briefly, I used to live at the most Canadian address possible. I lived at number 1 Snow Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And the last 2 years we lived there, we got snowed in. So literally, so you can take that, and it really, really happened. So from there, you can just take right off. So you got the good base for it. And that's the best part. Karen, you have something you wish to share. You want?
Yes, I have a story. It's my father's story about his life. And it looks like something from a plot from Dickens. I don't think it's a little sad in parts. And I don't know if there's any way I could work it into the tall tale thing. do you think I'm heading in the right direction with that? Because it's a true story, but it's a Dickens plot.
Well, I mean, it's whatever's going to work for you as a storyteller. And I mean, tall tales, the one thing we're doing with tall tales is we're getting people to think, could this happen? Could this have happened? Is there some degree of credibility with it? And I mean, I've been asked before if tall tales have to be funny. No, they don't. If they're not funny, they're bordering on creepy. That's another whole genre entirely, but fantastic and hard to believe things happen in both sides, either something that makes you laugh or something that makes you just shake your head.
I think I'll reserve this for heartwarming stories.
Good. That's a good way to go. Yeah, absolutely. And I see Earl and then Lori. Earl, go for it.
I'm wondering, Darren, are there any principles that would disqualify a story, that would not make it, like if you don't have enough detail, or, I mean, I did one once, but I mean, yeah, I'm just wondering if there are any basic principles that disqualify it.
Sure. One thing that we need to avoid, and I've seen this referenced in a couple of different places, this really works well if it's a personal story, like it happened to you. And the reason for that is that if we're getting too fantastic with something, we may be channeling a story that we heard elsewhere. We may be regurgitating, retelling a fairy tale of some sort that we heard in another circumstance. And then we're getting in the area of plagiarizing. Like, oh, really, that story? I don't remember that story, but so sharing your own personal stories, that way it's definitely yours, it's not somebody else's, and somebody cannot come back to you and say, I heard that somewhere before. You've stolen somebody else's story, and we don't want to ever do that. But that's the one thing that would be, I would be very cautious about. Lori, then Kyle, then Lee, and we've got like 3 minutes left. I'm not panicking. Lori.
Just a quick question. With regards to M.E. Bartholomew, her story, I want to tell you what happened when you asked what could happen before the throwing, that would make that all work into a tall tale. And without trying to, my mind went into some fantastical things. So my mind said, okay, you're on a holiday in the Amazon and you're being chased by a group of wild hogs. This was supposed to be mother-daughter or father-daughter time, and your dad is not going to let a bunch of wild hogs ruin your holiday. And so he throws you into the river to save your life, and then he dives in after you. So that's where my mind went, which is very fantastical and changes everything. So what I want to know is, where's the line between this is too fantastical, this is not really a tall tale, or it's totally not believable, and this is potentially plausible, and although a bit fantastic, it's good enough, it'll fit. Like how do you know you're going too far with fantastical?
If her dad threw her up into the belly of a UFO that just happened to be passing by, okay, we're going a little far there. But if you start, and this is where if you start with something that happened or has some grain of truth, if there's a logical sequence to it, even if the logic doesn't have to make sense, and it doesn't necessarily have to be possible, but if there's a logical sequence, yes, A happened, B happened, C could happen. Well, C could happen, then D could happen. You don't want to take that jump where suddenly you are off on Jupiter somewhere. But okay, what you just suggested, yeah, who knows if they were in the Amazon and she needed to get thrown a very long distance into the river. I mean, that's if your mind says, as soon as your mind says, I wonder, then you're on the right track. If your mind says, no, that's complete bourgeois, no, this cannot happen, then you've lost it. But anytime that you're thinking, this could happen, then you're in the right territory. Kyle, I believe.
Hey, Darren, I'm going to jump in here just for a second. I think what we'll do, we will not, we'll use this as the break time. So if you want to take a break, fine. If you want to stay here and ask a question, fine. So we'll take 5 minutes. And if you want to, so this will, basically we're not taking a break unless you as an individual decide to leave the room. And we'll keep going because I need to,
Yeah, I'll be back in 5.
Well, I have a question.
You need to take a break?
As an individual,
Okay.
need to take a break. So
Yeah. Okay.
I'll
Be
break.
back in 5 minutes. Okay. Exactly.
Okay, so we are on a break.
That hatched the idea.
I figured that part was real. Well, welcome back from the break, everyone. We're going to continue with the meeting now, and this is the part where you get to participate and try your hand at tall tales for 2 to 3 minutes. That's the timing that we'll be using. What I have in front of me are little pieces of paper that just need a name, a first and a last name that might be yours. If you are interested in trying your hand, your mind at Tall Tales, would you kindly put your name in the chat? And I'll give you 30 seconds here and to put your name in the chat, and hopefully we see some names in there, like Lori's name, maybe. 2 to 3 minutes. Yes, 2 to 3 minutes. We're using evaluation timing. So Kyle, you've already told a tall tale. Did you remember that? I'm kidding.
That's a valid question. So absolutely. I mean, for me, 1966 is clear, but what I had for breakfast, that's an issue. So
It was maybe the mushrooms, or I don't know, something. Any I'd love to see. Oh, Jennifer, there you go. Juniper. I'd love to see one more name. Who else? How about Karen King? Karen, you've had a lot to say this evening.
Okay, I'll do it.
Great. Fantastic. Why don't we start with Jennifer? Jennifer, you're going to tell your tall tale. If you want to share the title of it, you can do that either before or after. Then you'll have 2 to 3 minutes to share your tall tale. And then Darren is going to give you some feedback and for about a minute. And then if there are any other comments, I think we'll see. Since there are only 1, 2, 3 people right now, if you change your mind, go ahead and put your name in, because we do have time for at least 5 tall tales this evening. So Jennifer, what is your last name, Jennifer?
My last name is Lanzer, but it just says Jennifer.
Great. Jennifer Lanzer, welcome to the virtual stage. Take it away. And can you see the timer, Jennifer? The timer. Phil, would you mind raising your virtual hand so you can be pushed to the top of the screen as our timer? And Lee, great. Thank you, Lee. I have you written down here. Leah Matangelo. Great. Phil is raising his hand there. Oh, it's not staying up, Phil. That's weird. Okay, there we go.
That's me.
You see him? You see Phil?
I
Jennifer?
do see him.
Fantastic. Okay, anytime you're ready, take it away.
Okay. Well, I take my fur baby for long walks. And one day we were going across this stretch of highway. And the highway is on one side, and then on the other side is power stations, subdivisions, and things like that. So we get down to about 2 miles, so an hour into the walk, and it's a warm day, about 95, and clouds at least, thankfully. And then, so this one upscale subdivision has bodies of water in the front of it. And then so she goes running towards one of the bodies of water. And now about 15 feet from where she was originally going for, there's a family of ducks. So a mom and about 5 or 6 babies. And so my baby girl did not see them at all. She was just like, water, water, water. And so she goes in, she starts drinking, and then the babies freak out. They're like, I don't know what that is. I don't know. We got to get away. We got to get away. So they start swimming to the other side. And then the mother starts following them. And I thought she was going to go all the way. And then my girl goes into the water a little bit, and then the mother turns around and she like looks at my girl and she starts cussing us out. I don't care what it sounds like to anybody else, but that was cussing out to us in duck. And so she was coming at us, and then I was like, back off. You go to your babies, I stay with my babies. So we talked at each other for a while. She's cussing me out. And then she just decided, you know what? There's two of them. I'm done. So she just cussed us out and went away to the other side of the body of water. And then so I just let my little girl walk a little bit, looking at her, eyeing her as she was eyeing me. And then my girl got out of the water and we just continued our walk. And then, yeah, we didn't have any incident after that, but there were some sandhill cranes over a hill that was seeing us, and they were like, ooh, something's going to be happening there. But luckily nothing other than some cussing out happened. So it was an interesting day that day. And that's the end of my tall tale.
Thank you, Jennifer. And you have a title for your tall tale, all these animal stories tonight.
The day we met the mama duck.
There you go. The day we met Mama Duck. Now, Darren, do you have any comments? Wonderful job, Jennifer.
Oh, most certainly. I knew a farmer when I was growing up back in Manitoba who had a couple of geese as guard animals. So I have had encounters with ducks and geese and various waterfowl, and fowl being the right word. These people have a genuinely poor attitude. So this is completely plausible. Especially a mama duck going after a dog. Yeah, that one's easy. that is not, that's quite well within the realm of truth. What I liked about what Jennifer did with her story is we have something ominous on the horizon. We've got the sandhill cranes. So instead of my mind is thinking, oh, what's going to happen here? This should be interesting. So I like that part. What she said about with the duck and the mama duck, that's perfectly feasible, not a problem. And then I'm thinking, oh, I want to hear what the sandhill cranes are doing. So that was brilliant. Thank you, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you.
Jennifer, what part of it was farcical?
Just the part with the sandhill cranes. The rest of it was true.
Okay, that's great. Excellent. Good job. You had me in the palm of your hand. Next, we will invite Lee Amatangelo to the virtual stage. Lee, can you see Phil, the timer, our timer?
I can.
Fantastic. Anytime you're ready.
When I was 11, a movie was coming out. It was about a big ocean liner that got hit by a 90-foot tidal wave and got flipped upside down. When you're 11 years old, that's a movie you have to go see. I kept bugging my mama that summer. Can I go see the movie? She says, I won't let you go take the bus unless your older brother takes you. So I kept pleading with my older brother. He was 13, and finally he acquiesced. So we got to go this one hot summer day, and we took the bus downtown, and my mama said, as soon as that movie ends, you got to come home. So we go to the movie, and of course it was the most amazing movie, seeing this huge ship get turned over by a tidal wave. And afterwards, we go outside, and it must have been about 90 degrees out, and we're waiting at the bus stop. And 5 minutes go by from the time the bus is supposed to be there. I said to my brother, the bus is never late. We missed the bus. We're going to have to wait till the half hour. And he goes, no, the bus is coming. It got to be 10 after. I said, no, we missed the bus. Well, about 20 yards off was one of those little shops that sold the soft ice cream, had the little window by the sidewalk. So I went over there and I got the soft ice cream. Once you know, as soon as I came back to the bus stop, the bus showed up. And I knew there was no eating on the bus. It was a crime. And as an 11-year-old kid, I had this beautiful ice cream cone. So I went in the back door of the bus because we were in the free ride zone. So I went into the back. My brother's looking at me going, you idiot. And he went in through the front door. And I went into the very back seat and I had my ice cream. And I saw my brother coming down the aisle and he's shaking his head and he sits about halfway in the bus. Wouldn't you know, the very next bus stop, a policeman got on the bus. I'm talking about a policeman with those shiny black uniform, the big shiny gun, and those mirrored sunglasses. I'm going to prison. So what did I do? I did what any 11-year-old kid would do. I stuck that ice cream out the window because technically I did not have ice cream on the bus. Well, the bus driver started to pull away from the curb and the bus jerked. And it was 90 degrees out there. This ice cream was melting all over my hand, coming down my wrist. And as the bus jerked away from the curb, the soft ice cream fell off and hit the windshield of a parked car below, splattered the entire windshield. And all I heard as this bus rolled away was this elderly lady saying, "What kind of bird was it?" Madam Toastmaster.
Oh, that was so funny. Hey, was that the Poseidon Adventure? Is that what that was called? Yes, yeah, with Shelley Winters and she dies after swimming underneath there. Yeah, that was creepy movie. Oh my gosh. That was so funny. That was so funny. Darren, take it away.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, it was brilliant and it's all feasible. Whether it happened or not, who cares? It's all feasible. I don't have a brother, thank goodness, because I probably would have murdered him, but I can just picture what it would be like. And yeah, you know you're going to get caught. It's like, oh no, what do I do? This is terrible. So that all worked really, really well. And I love the ending with the bird poop. One thing, and Rebecca hit on this, Poseidon Adventure, bingo. Lee, you and I are the same age because I was 11 years old when that movie came out as well. When you're sharing a story, whether it's a tall tale, and especially with a tall tale, you never know when you're going to connect with your audience. And in the case of Lee, as soon as he said that, I was focused, like, this guy is the same age I am. We went to the same movie. It brought me in closer. So sharing details is really important. And again, with a tall tale, because we want to establish as much credibility as possible before we lose it completely, the details are really important. So that was brilliant, my friend. And now I'm going to go to the freezer and get some ice cream.
That the bird. That was so funny. And there's still time for more tall tales. We have two more people. Emmy, you are next. Emmy Bartholomew. Welcome to the virtual stage, Emmy.
Thank you. This is a story about my dad. My dad grew up in Montana. And he had 3 brothers and sisters. And he was pretty calm. He didn't get in much trouble. He took care of the other kids. But his dad thought he was turning into a mama's boy. He didn't want no mama's boy. So he kept trying to think of ways that he could teach my dad to fight. And so he would give him lessons in fighting, and Dad didn't want to fight. But he would do it anyway, because after all, his dad wanted him to, you know. But it didn't seem to be working. And Grandpa, you know, he just was sure that Dad was turning into a mama's boy. So one day they were driving over to visit my grandfather's family in Wallace, Idaho. Well, Wallace is kind of a tough town. At that time, there were lots of hen houses. Okay, let's say that easy women lived there. But that meant that it was a rough and tumble town. So they're walking down the street, and all of a sudden, there was a bunch of guys around, and one of them picks on my dad. And my dad has to fight to protect himself. So he's having this fight with this guy, and he's going, what is the problem with you? Leave me alone, leave me alone. And he beat the other guy. And they're walking down the street, and another guy comes up and starts a fight with my dad. And again, he has to fight this guy out. Leave me alone, leave me alone. Dad, stop this guy. Dad didn't do a thing. He just went, well, you take care of it. So they keep walking down the street, and there's always somebody to pick on Dad. He came home with such a bloody nose and bruised up fists and everything. And Granny said, Grandpa, what did you do to this boy? I didn't do anything. Oh, come on, I know you did something. Well, I may have paid these guys to pick on him so he'd learn to not be a mama's boy. Dad says, how much did you pay him? 50 cents a piece. 50 cents. This is back in the day when a guy worked in the mines for $1 a day. Oh, and Dad was pissed off. He was so pissed off because he thought that his dad should have given him the money. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Emmy. Excellent. Darren, over to you for some comments on Emmy's.
First of all, I'm gonna stay away from Wallace, Idaho, because I'm way too delicate for this sort of thing. But Emmy did something really brilliant. She took us back to another time to which none of us have any direct relation. We have to trust her that she is telling the truth of these historical events. And I mean, we know fully well that there is an awful lot of untruth coming our way. But when you put a story into historical context, subconsciously, we're trusting you. Okay, you're sharing history. You're sharing a story of what happened. The initial reaction subconsciously is that we're going to believe you because you're sharing a story, especially a family story. Your father, your grandfather, and there's something about that makes us want to believe you. So that actually helps with the tall tale because, oh yeah, okay. Oh, okay. It's very subtle. It's nowhere near as out there as other tall tales can be. But for Emmy, the ending, I won't call it the punchline, but the ending was what worked it really well. Like, whoa, hold on, give me the money. That's when you realize, oh, okay, she's pulling our leg here. Up until that point, this was completely plausible, completely feasible. I can picture this very easily. So that was brilliant in that regard. No question there. And a good setup. Don't want to be a mama's boy, don't want to be a mama's boy, don't want to be a mama's boy. And you were quite polite about describing the situation with the women of frayed moral fiber in
frayed moral fiber. I like that.
So, but it was subtle that way. And that subtlety also put it into a nice historical context. You wouldn't be saying anything as naughty as we might in 2022 back then. So that too establishes the credibility. And sometimes with a tall tale, it doesn't have to be off into the outer reaches of space. It just has to be a little notch above what really happened. And at the end, your audience thinking, hold on, whoa. And right at the end, that's good because then they have no chance for rebuttal. It's like, she finished the story. Oh, crap. Okay. So brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Excellent. Darren, you're a great evaluator. Our next tall tale teller is Karen King. Please welcome Karen to the virtual stage.
Thank you. I'm ready. It's a dark and stormy night, but the rain has stopped. And there's 6 teenagers in a car, 3 girls and 3 boys, and they just leaving the freshman dance. And it's about a half hour before my deadline to be home. My date is driving. He's a sophomore. He has a driver's license. And so we pull over just to get out and talk because the clouds have cleared, the rain is gone, and we just get out and talk the way teenagers do. We get back in the 57 Chevy and go over to my house, and my date leaves me there, and everything is cool. The next day, I am in a total panic. My pearl encrusted formal purse that went with my formal dress is gone. I don't know where it is. I call my friend Virginia. Virginia, what am I going to do? I think I've lost my purse somewhere. I don't know if it's in my date's car. I don't know where it is, but I think we need to walk the half mile over the hill and see where we stop the car and see if my purse is there. She said, okay, we'll do that. So she comes out to stay all night, and we went to tell my parents that we're going on this big adventure. We're going to go on a hike. Well, teenagers always say when they're too young to drive yet. We walk over the hill and go back into where the car was parked. There's my purse. My pearl encrusted purse is encrusted with mud. My mother was so proud of this purse and the fact that she gave it to me as a gift. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't want my mom to know that we stopped here in the car. She'll think all kinds of bad things. So Virginia and I find an old well on the property, and it's right in the front yard, but it's not being used, and there's a lot of bricks kind of scattered around it. And we put the purse down the well. I really feel bad about it. I feel very guilty, but I just don't want my mom to know that I even got out of the car in the country. You know, she'll think all kinds of things. So we went back home, and about a month later, there was a huge storm, and we lived in tornado country. Tornadoes can rip through and take up houses. In the Midwest, we used to stand out and watch houses being taken out. And I get a really creepy feeling. So Virginia and I go back down to the home site, and sure enough, the bricks have all been moved by the tornado that took up the house. The house was gone. And there, on top of one of the bricks, is the pearl purse encrusted with mud and pieces of bricks. And now what do we do with it?
And what title would you give this pearl purse tale?
The Teenage Guilt. Teenage Guilt and the Pearl Purse.
Okay, that's great. Over to you, Darren.
That's a tremendous title, first of all. I grew up in sort of tornado country as well. In southern Manitoba, where I grew up, we'd get vicious thunderstorms and the occasional tornado that would make life, let's go with interesting. We'll go with that, sure. So that's another connection. Some people in this audience grew up in the Midwest or in the prairies, and we could see that part of it being quite feasible. Karen did something that was really brilliant. She put the happy ending in the middle of her speech. We were concerned about her pearl purse. My first thought was, oh God, if you don't find that purse, this is going to be so sad. But she found the purse. Oh, thank God you found the purse. Okay, it needs a little maintenance. not an issue. This would have been really heartbreaking. Oh, this is a person my mom had for years and I've lost it. That would have been sad. So yeah, the happy ending's right in the middle, and that's fine, because then we're focusing in on this purse. This was all very, very plausible, and especially, I'm presuming everybody here was a teenager at least once. We've been through this stuff before, like, oh, I don't want to get busted, I don't want to get caught, oh man. And this is the age that I did the 7-year-old earlier. The age of the real tall tales is when we're teenagers, because for reasons that I can't quite understand, that's when we think that our parents are stupid and that we're smart, which is indescribably incorrect. Like, beyond so. But we're at a stage where we can come up with all sorts of weird stuff. This was brilliant because I believed every single word of it. I didn't see anything that was fantastical. Somewhere in there was a stretch, could have been the tornado. But if you don't know, as an audience member, if you don't know where the truth broke, that is a brilliant tall tale. Much like earlier to this evening when I spoke, some people actually believe the whole thing. If your audience can believe, because I believed everything that Karen said. I was thinking, yay, okay, after the tornado, we got it. It's dirty, and she's off the schneid because she's not getting in trouble for the purse being dirty now because it's already dirty thanks to the tornado. Yay! This is a victory all the way around. Brilliant.
All
Brilliant
right.
story. So.
And Karen, I actually expected the purse to be cleaned by the tornado and sitting right there, so you didn't get in trouble after all.
No miracles.
Yeah, right. No miracles, exactly. We have 2 more tall tale participants this evening. The next person next up is Donna Smith. Take it away, Donna.
Thank you, Rebecca. And my title is Cherry Bombs Can Be More Than Noisy. Fellow Toastmasters and friends, my tall tale tonight is also about one of my favorite people in my life, my dad. And he grew up, as I did, in the Seattle, Washington area. And he was right in the Seattle area proper itself. And he ran around with some relatively tough friends. They weren't gangsters or anything like that, but they were boys. They were typical boys. They loved pranks. And I'm going to take you back to a very warm, late June 1940s day for my dad and his friends. So they were all kind of bored. I think my dad at that time was able to drive, but this is not a story about a car or driving. Instead, this is a story about my dad and his friends, kind of bored, out walking around. It's right before the 4th of July. Cherry bombs are plenty, as well as fireworks in general. And being what they were, including my dad, they decided with a neighbor, these were all guys that lived in the same neighborhood. And there was a neighbor there that none of them liked. And so what they decided to do, and they were an older couple that lived in this home. So my dad and his friends had direct access to the back door of this neighbor's home with a porch that had an open space underneath. So they decided, this is probably about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon on this warm June afternoon. And they decided to put a bomb, a homemade bomb of these cherry bombs. They set off this big bomb, boom. I mean, everything just went, oh man, it was a mess. Right, coincidentally, that's what is so fascinating about this story. Coincidentally, right, almost like maybe 10, 30 seconds later, the big Seattle earthquake it was one of those rolling on the street type of events. And anyway, so my dad and his friends are laughing. The neighbor is coming out, the man, he's screaming like heck. mad as heck at the kids. And coincidentally, across the street from all this comes a neighbor who is a Seattle cop. He must have just got off work. He was still in his policeman's uniform. He comes running out at my dad and his friends screaming, how dare all of you get this big city disaster going? All of you are damned to go to hell. I can guarantee that. Madam Toastmaster.
Now we know who caused the earthquake. Darren, we have time for some brief comments, and then we're going to fit in. Earl Thomas is going to round us out today.
Sure.
That
Brief
was
comments.
so funny.
Brilliant. Bringing in a historical event adds credibility right away. And I like the fact that it was your father's fault. That's cool. That is really, really good. That could haunt them for years. And that's a nice thing to add to a tall tale. Like, yeah, these young innocent teenagers. Innocent teenager. That's an oxymoron. But their actions were somehow punished by God with the earthquake in Seattle. I love that. That's great. And the cop is throwing a cop is always good. No question there. So brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and living with that kind of guilt must be really tough on a guy. Know what I'm saying, Donna? Yeah. Oh, that was great. Next up, our last tall tale of the evening. Welcome, Earl Thomas.
Hello there. Can you hear me loud and clear? Great.
No.
What?
Carry on. Go ahead.
Okay. It's called Surprise at the Memorial Arena. Now, my dad was a boxer. He was the Vancouver Island champion, the flyweight, in 1924. And he taught me some boxing. I mean, I was only 10 years old, and he was on his knees teaching me, and we were going away at it, I learned from him. But I was signed up for lacrosse when I was 9 years old. I lived in Nanaimo, BC. And when I was in junior B, about 18 years old, we were playing Victoria. Now, Victoria, just further down the island, they were a really rough team, and they beat us really bad. 10-2, and we were in a big playoff. So we went down to the Memorial Arena, and we had a bad start. They got 5 straight goals. We got a goal, and then they got 4 goals, and we needed a spark. Now, as I said, they're a rough team, and I was on the floor, and this one guy was slashing at me. No penalty. Ref was blind. And I wasn't taking it. And he came at me. And all that he showed me, I didn't have these on, but I went at him, and I really took it to him. Now, I was known as a very mild-mannered guy. Never been in a fight in lacrosse. And he went down like a ton of bricks. And I got 5 minutes, and he got instigator penalty, and he got 5 minutes. But the tide changed in that game. It sparked our team. We went ahead when that fight was on, though. And when it was done, our guys, we were called the Saints, and they were up banging the boards. And it was just amazing. They just got going. We won that game. And you know what? My dad was there, and he was standing up, and he was elated. And I have these memories of that fight. And we won the championship. We beat Victoria. They were our biggest nemesis. And I loved my time in lacrosse. It's the greatest sport. It's my favorite sport of all the sports. Earl Thomas, a voice, signing off.
And Earl, did you give us a title for your tall tale?
Yes, Surprise at the Memorial Arena.
Surprise at the Memorial Arena. That's great. Darren, take it away.
I was not aware that Earl owned a set of boxing gloves, first of all. So the next time I come over, I'm going to stay outside. But he brought in some props, which is really cool. And this is one thing you can do with a tall, why am I doing this? One thing you can do with a tall tale is bring in some props. If you got something talking about a fight, I mean, a lot of people here right now would not be familiar with lacrosse and what a nice, gentle sport it is. But bringing in the boxing gloves helps. It gives it that visual. This is a place where fighting happens. So that was very, very good. And again, it all seemed credible. The gloves makes you wonder, what in the world is going on with the boxing gloves here? Props can be useful. They can also be a distraction. He was able to say, okay, fine, I got into a fight with this guy, which meant that the boxing gloves then became a legitimate prop. It was backing up his story. So using props, sure, by all means do so. Make sure that they go with the story that you're telling. But overall, the nice thing about all of the stories that we've heard here this evening is the complete sincerity. Everybody was thoroughly, completely, entirely convinced they were telling the truth. And we know damn well they were not doing so, which is, this is the essence of tall tales. If you can make somebody believe you and you know darn well you're lying your teeth off, this is good stuff. Madam Toastmaster, back to you, please.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I've really learned a lot about tall tales. I always thought they had to be hugely fantastical, like Paul Bunyan, where you know this is just a silly made-up thing. But some of these tonight, I actually couldn't tell what was made up and what wasn't. So I learned a lot about that.
This is what keeps us alive when we're teenagers, is the tall tales that mom and dad believe.
That's right. That's right. Lee Amantangelo will be next up to give us a general evaluation of our entire session. Lee, will you also ask Phil for the timing for all of our Tall Tales participants? Great job, everyone. Welcome Phil to the stage. I'm sorry, welcome Lee to the stage.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster and fellow Laugh Lab masters and guests. We're glad you were here. What I like most about our meeting is that we had a lot of great participation from, I believe, almost everybody. So that was good. Just a few people didn't speak, but that was great. In terms of evaluation, I'm supposed to evaluate the evaluator, and I think Darren did a great job, as we heard from Rebecca throughout. Very great evaluations and very specific points to be made on the various tall tales. So that was great. And then a lot of people also had a lot of other comments for our speakers as well. We started on time, and I think we're going to end on time. Overall, it was a great meeting, but at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Phil so he can give us a timing report.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Evaluator. I had, for the presentation, I had 42 minutes on that. For Kyle's presentation, I had 6 minutes and 3 seconds for his tall tale. For the volunteer tall tales, Jennifer, I had you down at 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Lee, I had you at 2 minutes, 51 seconds. Emmy, you were at 3 minutes, 42 seconds. Karen, and this is not a tall tale, you were also at 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Donna, you were at 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Earl, you were at 2 minutes and 39 seconds. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Timer Phil. A couple of comments I'll make about tall tales that I've learned over the years. I've been in Toastmasters for 31 years, and I think I learned this probably about 30 years ago. What you normally saw in a tall tale was at the very end, the person said, "and then I woke up." And there was a question earlier in the meeting, what should you do in a tall tale? You shouldn't do that, because it defeats what you're trying to prove. You want to make it seem like your story was actually plausible and it wasn't just a dream. So that was one comment I wanted to make there. And I also have seen tall tales that are very just fantastical, where almost every other second the story has changed. They're trying to get to Japan, and all of a sudden they're riding on the back of a whale, and the whale's speaking, and it just goes on from there. It's just so ridiculous that I've seen those speeches actually win the first couple of layers of a tall tale competition. So it doesn't have to be always something really plausible. It can also be something a little bit more fantastical, kind of like the Paul Bunyan story. But on that, thank you, Darren, for all the great information you provided for us today. The examples you gave, your own speech on the tall tale was great. I thought Kyle did an excellent job on his speech. Really loved it. It kept us going. I believe both those stories were true, by the way. And on that note, I'm going to turn it over to our Toastmaster, Rebecca.
Thank you. Job well done. At this time, I'd like to share gratitude with our guest presenter by everybody having an opportunity to share what is one thing that you learned from tonight that you will take forward with you in your next speaking opportunity or your next Tall Tales competition. And let's start with Kyle. I'm just going to read down the participants list here. When I get to your name, in fact, to speed it up, why doesn't everybody unmute at this time when I call your name? Please keep it brief, but share your comments to Darren for his generosity. Kyle, let's start with you.
So I've known for a long time that painting word pictures is important to storytelling and connecting with your audience, but I never realized how it facilitated believability and that transition from what is plausible to the believable of the implausible in a tall tale. So the painting of the word pictures and the description of it, just really important there.
Yes, excellent, Kyle. Donna Smith.
Yeah, for me, there were multiple things that I learned and gleaned tonight, but one of my favorites was that I've done tall tales in the past, and personally, I love that type of story and speech in Toastmasters. But I learned tonight that it's best to base your story off of something that actually happened to you or that you know direct knowledge about, rather than say what I've done in the past of taking something either from a favorite story that I've read or a old radio show or an old movie that I've enjoyed in the past and basing my story off of that. Instead, turning it towards something or somebody in my life directly that I know and then spinning from there. So that's my glean from tonight.
Excellent, Donna. Earl Thomas and then Jennifer.
I think what I learned is to go for it, because I thought about this a lot before I actually said yes. And I think being in Just Prose helps because of the impromptu speeches we did. And I'm glad I went for it. Yeah.
I am too. Good job. Good job.
It was a knockout, Earl.
Oh, thank you. I did. I won the fight.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Jennifer.
Yeah, I think what I learned is that I just have a weird life and a weird family, so that our stuff that's actually true is kind of fantastical to everybody else. So I'm not sure if I need to dumb it down a bit or just kind of go with the truth and then just see how far I can go.
That's a good point.
Oh,
Very
go with
funny.
the truth. If you've got a weird family, milk it for all it's worth. Oh, wow. Lucky you. So.
Yeah, somebody put in the chat earlier, truth is stranger than fiction. And there's a lot of truth to that. Lindsay, how about you?
I thought that my family was one big tall tale for the time I was born. I got endless writing to do.
Excellent. Lori.
I thought it was an excellent presentation and workshop. I was totally engaged the whole time, and I learned so much. I'd say my favorite thing was, or the most useful thing was what someone else had said, which is to take from real life something that actually happened that's maybe a little bit unusual or a little bit different, and then add some bits and pieces to it. Some may be true, some may be true at some other time, just sort of putting it together like that. And then the second thing is the expressiveness. I was really surprised at just how expressive everyone was in telling their tall tale. Facially expressive, vocally expressive, even physically moving around expressive. It's a highly expressive mode of speaking, and yet it comes across so naturally.
Very good.
Quite amazing. Really, yeah.
Excellent. Okay, Ron, and we'll need to keep these to 15 to 20 seconds to make sure that everybody has Ron and then Walter.
Hi, everyone. It's my first time, and I had a great education, and I loved every minute of it. I'll see you again.
Excellent. We're so glad that you came, Ron. Walter.
Two things. Number one, Laugh Lab is Toastmasters. Oh my goodness, take me back almost 40 years. It was 1985 when I landed in a speech craft after my apprenticeship, and it's been a while, but boy, this has been amazing. Kind of a walk through memory lane, and they're a good reminder about how the tall tales don't necessarily have to be fantastical.
Yes, very good. Very
good
good.
stuff.
Thank you so much. Marilee and then Marlene.
No, sorry, I was late, so I wish I came earlier. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Marlene.
I enjoyed it very much, and I've realised that I've been telling tall tales for years. I've given many humorous speeches. They're all personal stories, and I've usually just added a bit in to make them funnier. So I think that was a tall tale.
Yes, yes, you are a tall tales expert, it seems. Yes, and thank you for coming this evening. Also, everybody this is your first time, thank you so much for being here. Let's hear just quickly from Phil, Karen, and Emmy, and then I will actually, Emmy, I'll turn it back to you in a second. Let's hear from Karen and Phil, just quickly. Love to hear your voice.
Which one first?
Karen.
Karen, okay. The title should have been The Curse of the Telltale Purse, like the Edgar Allan Poe's A Telltale Heart.
Excellent.
I loved this experience, and it really helped me realize that I can come up with something quickly.
Yes.
And not labor over it so long that I absolutely wear myself out.
Excellent. Phil, and I forgot to call on Kyle. So Phil, Kyle, and then round it out to Emmy, who will tell us about what's happening next month.
The thing I learned was that perhaps I can use a historical event in my tall tale weaving, something I had not thought of before.
Very good point. Kyle. Kyle's still here.
I am going to post into the chat our
Okay.
link to our next meeting.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. And anything that you learned this evening that was new for you, Kyle?
Well, I was the first one.
Started off.
Went. So
Oh, sorry. Never mind. Never mind. Emmy, back to you,
Okay.
our illustrious presidents.
Thank you, Rebecca, for handling this wonderful meeting tonight. And thank you, Darren, for coming and sharing your knowledge with us. It was just a lot of fun. Personally, I learned a lot because I didn't know I could tell tall tales. And I have to tell you that tale that I told was pretty much the truth. I had to make up some things because I didn't know how much he paid them, but yeah. So next month, we're going to do something called Holiday Humor Hubris. Now, obviously going to tell a tale about some kind of holiday event. It could be a tall tale, or it could be just something strange that has happened to you on the holiday, or it could be a family story, whatever it is, some story about the holidays that will get some laughs, or will just people will go, what? It doesn't matter. So if you would like to sign up to tell a story, let us know and we'll fill up our roster and it'll be a lot of fun. So Anybody have anything else they need to add for the good of the order? Kyle or
So I
Rebecca
put in the
or
chat, the Eventbrite link for our Holiday Hubris Humor meeting. And we did it last year, and it was one of our most popular meetings, so it's back by popular demand. If you have a story about a holiday disaster, or maybe somebody who reached just a little beyond their capability, and you'd like to tell it, send me an email, and we'll see if we can get you on the agenda. But definitely sign up to come to the meeting, because it's a lot of fun. And my email is in the chat. I also put in the chat a link to interesting upcoming Toastmaster meetings. So if you're interested in other sorts of meetings, I have several there. And for those of you who are not Toastmasters, you can skip the district officer training events that I mentioned. That's it. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. And so, with no further ado, I am going to adjourn this meeting, and I hope we will see you all again soon.